Yeah, so this is, you know what, guys, I'm a little worried. I already speak pretty slowly, pretty deliberately is what I like to say when I'm trying to justify how slowly I speak. I've tried to change it. I've tried to speed it up. I think having to watch myself on a screen for the last couple of years has caused me to want to speed it all up. But I just can't seem to shake the little bit of surfer in me. It's all real slow and drawn out. And I'm scared because I feel like the humidity is making it worse. Wilting, fragile. Yeah, this is exciting for me. I'm so glad to be here. This is like my 10-year anniversary. The first event I ever attended, as Brian said, was in Warrensburg. And me and a few friends made our way to Warrensburg. And I was telling my friends, no, there's a family of churches out here, and they're like, really? When are we going to find it, Have you brought us out here to die? No, man, it's out here somewhere. And yeah, it was 10 years ago. So I remember Jack Langford, is that his last name? Was leading worship. He's at Christ Church in Joplin. And Terry Virgo, the founder of our family of churches, he spoke. I can't remember anything Terry said. I don't remember any of the sermons. Here's what I remember. I stood next to him in line with a cafeteria tray. He just was in line, the founder of like this massive family of churches. And I thought, I think I've seen his face on the back of the book, And so, this is why I remember that. I thought to myself, I want to be a part of a family of churches where the founder stands in line with a cafeteria tray, just waiting for a sloppy Joe, and just content to do so. I just thought, I love this. I remember meeting with Carl and Virginia, who were leading in Atlanta. And what I started to realize is that in many of the churches were some of Carl and Virginia's kids. I started to kind of put it together and started realizing as I talked to Carl and Virginia, I started to realize as I spoke with him that many of his kids were leading and loving and planting churches. And I remember thinking, this is the family I want to be a part of. I want my kids to get caught up in leading and loving and serving and planting churches. I want to be a part of something multi-generational. I also wanted to ask Carl about his arm, like what happened to your arm? But that took me like years to work up the guts to ask. I was scared, but I didn't do it. Yeah, now I'm here, and I'm here with my 16-year-old daughter, who also has close friends here in this family of churches, and also is leading and loving and serving the church. And so I just feel so thankful that the Lord saw fit to add me to this family. So some of my dearest and closest friends are here. So it's a beautiful thing and a joy to be a part of this family with all of its blemishes, right? And all of its shortcomings and all of its weaknesses, which is what's going to lead me to my sermon tonight, titled Various Shortcomings and Blemishes of the Midwest region of churches. Or the working title is This Family Has Issues. This is where I've been coming from. So, actually, what I wanted to do tonight is to remind us that we are family for sure, but we're not together ultimately for the sake of closeness. We're together for the sake of Christ and his wonderful work in the world. We're together on mission. And, the connection, the closeness, what we enjoy is just one of the many benefits of being joined to him and what he's up to. So we are together, no doubt, but we are together on mission, and we want to hold those two things together. So as Mike Breen has said, it's not family or a mission, and it's not family as our mission. It's family on mission. This is what we're wanting to do. So ultimately, we haven't just been joined to one another. We've been joined to Christ, and we now participate in what he's up to. That's so encouraging that this wasn't Brian's idea. It's not like Brian was like, hey, Trav, I got this idea. I think we'll get together, we'll strengthen and encourage and plant churches. And then I didn't decide, I'd like to join you, Brian, in what you're up to. This is Jesus's idea, his work, his body, his world that he's working to renew. So he has an idea. He has desires. He has ways that he wants us to go about things. And so we get to join Jesus in what he's doing. So I want to look this evening at our Lord and his mission and his motivation, why he does what he does. And I hope that it encourages us. So if you could open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 9. If you don't have a Bible, I believe the scriptures will be on the screen. As Jesus passed on from there, starting in verse 27, this is the very end of 10 miracles in a row. Jesus gives the Sermon on the Mount and proclaims the good news of the kingdom, and then he starts to demonstrate the good news of the kingdom, and he starts healing, casting out demons and exercising authority. The kingdom starts breaking in, and this is at the very end of 10 miracles of inclusion. And as Jesus passed on from there, 2 blind men followed him, crying aloud, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." And when he entered the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" And they said to him, "Yes, Lord." And then he touched their eyes, saying, "According to your faith, be it done to you." And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, "See that no one knows about it." But they went away and spread his fame throughout all that district. As they were going away, behold, a demon-oppressed man who was mute was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the mute man spoke, and the crowds marveled, saying, "Never was anything like this seen in Israel." But the Pharisees said, "He casts out demons by the prince of demons." And Jesus, he went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. There are so many reasons that we call Jesus Lord. There are so many very compelling reasons, but there's one feature being highlighted in this text, and it's a feature that I want to highlight tonight, and it's his compassion, the compassion of Jesus. A couple months back, I was teaching on Palm Sunday in preparation for Easter. If you're not familiar with the Palm kind of Sunday story, Jesus triumphantly enters Jerusalem, and he's riding on a colt, a donkey, and people are throwing down their coats and they're waving palm branches, and the crowd is saying, "Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." But as I was preparing to teach from Matthew 21, what I don't know that I didn't, I'm not sure why I didn't put this together, but from that scene, Jesus actually goes on, and in verse 12 of Matthew 21, we read that Jesus entered the temple, and he drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables. Have you heard this story before? He started flipping over the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling pigeons. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of robbers." And then there's this peculiar verse 14, "And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them." And as I was reflecting on this, I was just thinking, so this is a famous little passage here where zeal for God's house consumes Jesus, and he goes off. I don't want to say he loses it, because this is very deliberate. We actually read in John 2 that he makes a whip. So this is a premeditated strike. He's seen what's gone on in the temple for some time, and he decides, today's the day. I'm going to go postal. His anger is not like our anger. Our anger's in a hurry. His is right on time. It's on tempo. Ours never really fits the crime. His always fits the crime. But he goes off, right? He starts denouncing things with screams and shouts, and righteous anger consumes him. And I was just want to help you see what I saw in my mind's eye, because I'm picturing Jesus just completely losing it. I mean, he's actually physically throwing over tables, and people are running from him. There's probably feathers in the air. There's people hiding. Some lamb, runs off. He has a whip in hand that he made. I don't know how long it took him to make it or what he was thinking as he did that, but he's got a whip in hand. And I'm guessing, I don't know if you've ever lost it, but when I lose it, I find myself almost like when the dust settles, you're like almost out of breath, and you're like, what just happened? What was that? And I can imagine him spent and kind of seething, probably still shaking. But now all of a sudden this sadness starts to visit on him. And I was just picturing in my mind's eye, every leader, every money changer, every mucky muck in the temple is running from him. And then picturing in my mind some blind man going against the flow of traffic, thinking a space is opened up. And I'm sure it's quiet because no one knows what to say, because they all know he's right in what he said. And there's nothing to say. And as the feathers kind of settle to the floor, some lame man starts to drag himself towards Jesus. And they get to him and they say, "Could you pray for me?" And Jesus doesn't say, "Not now. It's not a good time." You're only laughing because you did this loading the car like 2 hours ago. We're going away for a weekend. It's 2 days. We're gone for 2 days. This can't all be for 2 days. "Hey, buddy, could you come back a little later and hit me up, okay? I would normally reach out my hand to heal you, but there's a whip in it. I don't know if you missed what just happened here." The blind, the lame, while everyone's running away, they're working their way towards Jesus because they know he has compassion. And Jesus doesn't say, "Give me a second." Jesus doesn't say, "Why can't I get a break? How long, oh Lord? Will I be with these people forever?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll pray for you." Oh, man. I love Jesus. Who does this? It's always a good time for Jesus. It's always a good time for him to heal because he has great compassion for people. That was the zeal that consumed him. That's what got him going in the first place, is these people can't get to me and it bothers me. So yeah, it's a good time. I'm still shaky. I'm still seething. Why did he heal the sick? Why did he drive out demons? Why did he feed the hungry? Why did he touch lepers? Over and over again, we're told in the gospel, it's because he was moved with compassion. He loved people. When they were hurting, he was hurting. When they were grieved, he was grieved. He loves people. And sometimes that can be easy for us to say, yeah, he does. He loves people. No, he loves you. Oh, yeah, I know. No. He loves you. Yeah, I know. I'm aware of that. No, he loves you. Yeah, well, he got pretty upset on the way here, and I know. And he loves you. He has compassion for you. And when you're hurting, he hurts. And his guts go out to you. To you, not just to people or to cities or to villages or to other nations, to you. His guts go out to you right where you're at. Jump with me back into Matthew 9, starting in verse 27. And Jesus passed from there, and 2 blind men followed him, crying aloud, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." A couple things that I want you to notice here. This is 2 blind men who are determining to be heard above the crowd. So they're shouting, they're screaming. This is the first time that anyone in Matthew's gospel refers to Jesus as the son of David. Matthew's genealogy says that Jesus is the son of David, but no one in Matthew's gospel has called him the son of David yet. And the reason is this is a significant title because this is a loaded term, son of David. This means God's promised Messiah, the anointed one who would deliver Israel from their enemies and sit on a throne forever. So one thing to notice that I think is just so exciting here is that the first people to spot this or to see this are two blind men. Those are the first people to see this. To see it and then to say, this is the one who's been promised. This is the guy. And so the question comes to me and probably to us, how did these two guys put this together? And the text doesn't necessarily say it, but maybe they had heard the rumors about what was happening through Jesus' ministry. Maybe they just wanted it to be true. Either way, the news that Jesus was healing reached them. And maybe they knew of the promises about the Son of David. Maybe they knew the promises about God's anointed one, the Messiah who would come. Maybe they were aware of the passage, the text in Isaiah that says that when the anointed one comes, the eyes of the blind shall be opened. Maybe they were holding on to that. Maybe they knew that when God's promised Messiah comes, that the ears of the deaf will be unstopped, and the lame man will leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute will sing for joy. Maybe they knew that, had heard the reports about what was happening through Jesus' ministry, and thought, this is God's guy. My guess is they were probably thinking, what the heck do we have to lose? If it's not him, what do we have to lose? If he doesn't want to show us mercy, what do we have to lose? We have to try. So they just start screaming, Son of David, have mercy on us, and they're determined to be heard above the crowd. There's only one way to find out, right? Which is to just start screaming out. This has happened to me during the last couple of years, but I find myself not able to recognize people with masks on. I was in the Denver airport, and I was convinced I was on a plane with someone I knew, but he had a hat on and a mask on, so you're just staring. And I'm thinking, I haven't seen this guy a while, and he's gained some weight, which is probably exactly what he's thinking as he looks at me. But I'm thinking, I don't know if this is the guy. But there's only one way to find out, right? Which is to kind of go, Matt, but you don't sell out. Not initially, you don't sell out. I don't walk right up and be like, are you Matt? You can't do that. So you're just like, oh, hey, Matt, I had one AirPod in so I could turn and pretend no, I'm on the phone. I'm not talking to you. Talking to my friend Matt. Matt? Yeah, anyway. So I'm staring at him. I throw it out once. It's just not loud enough. He doesn't pick up on it, So what do you got to do? You got to up the ante, So I was like, Matt, and finally he turns around. I thought, oh, it is you. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to risk it and to go for it. So these guys they're going for it. They're selling out, right? Notice this too. I found this really interesting, kind of strange. Jesus doesn't stop for these guys. He just keeps walking. He makes two blind guys chase after him. Here's my best attempt at understanding that is that I just don't think he wants the drama that surrounds answering to that title just yet. I don't think in public, when someone cries out, Son of David, that Jesus wants to say at this point in the game, here I am. So he just keeps walking and he doesn't respond to their cries. And somehow these guys just keep pressing on. They follow him. It's also possible that Jesus could be testing their faith. He could be seeing if they're willing to pursue, seeing if they're willing to come along. So I know some of you gals, you've played games with boys just to see if they're really sorry, right? And some of you coaches have pushed your players, just to see what they're really made of, right? And some of you bosses have passed out assignments just to see if this employee's really in, right? Some of you parents have given some less than desirable chores to the kids just to see what they're made of, right? I have 5 daughters, and I walked into the backyard, and there was Finley and a few of her friends were in a hot tub, and I was like, all right, guys, hey, listen, it's time to pick up dog numbers. And, if everyone gets 4, we'll pound this out real quick. And Finley's just looking at me like, you got to be kidding. Everybody out, let's go. Everyone gets 4 and we're done, One girl, Emmy, hops out. Okay, where's the shovel? I was like, oh, sweetie, I'm not going to make you pick up dog poop. Just seeing what you're made of. But I appreciate that you were willing to pick up poop at my house. So I'm not saying that Jesus is like me or like a girlfriend or like your crazy boss or like a coach. I'm just saying that in Jesus' brilliance, he might be testing their faith. He might be asking them to take another step. He might be wanting to see what's really in their hearts. So he does do this, and he can do this. But for either of these reasons, or maybe one that I can't think of, Jesus makes these blind guys keep up with him, follow hard after him. He doesn't heal them immediately. He asks them to keep coming. And when he and they entered the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, do you believe that I'm able to do this? And they probably said, yeah, that's why we've been screaming for the last 10 minutes and blindly trying to keep up with you. We're convinced. Yeah, we think you can do this. And these men become for us just this beautiful example of bold faith, of persisting, bold faith in Jesus. And faith is a sort of humble confidence that I really see in these 2 guys here. These 2 men have humility and they have confidence. Notice in what they say, their view of Jesus, and notice in what they say, their view of themselves and their situation, right? They come humbly and they say, have mercy on us. That's what they're screaming out. Have mercy on us. They're not screaming, Son of David, justice. We demand justice. They're not saying, Son of God, we've got a bone to pick with you. Everybody was born with 2 eyes that work, and ours don't. They're not screaming out, Son of David, why did you walk right past us and make our way to you? They are asking for mercy. They aren't demanding their healing. And sometimes faith in some camps has turned into demanding our healing. They're asking for mercy. They're not demanding their healing. They're not saying to him, you owe us sight. You owe us sight. They're saying, have mercy on us. What a great glimpse into their view of Jesus and into their view of themselves. This is the absolute antithesis to the spirit of entitlement that rests in me and in you, I'm sure. They come with a humble view of self, but then they come with a real confidence in Jesus. When Jesus says, do you believe I can do this? They're like, oh yeah, we're sold. We're sold on that. And I love this picture of faith. Like, Jesus, you have the mercy and you have the might. You have the compassion and you have the capacity. And I love this about Jesus because I have friends who love me and they can't do anything about my situation. I keep bringing it up, like hoping they do. They don't. They're like, oh man, I really love you and wish I could do something. I just can't. And then there's people who can do something about my situation. They don't love me. They don't care for me. They don't care about my situation. And here we have Jesus, the one who has mercy and might, who loves us and can do something about the situation we're in. He's full of compassion, and then he actually has the capacity to pull something off. It's a beautiful picture of faith. And then he touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, be it done to you. And their eyes were opened. And many read this line and think that when Jesus says, according to your faith, he's talking about proportion or in accordance with the amount of faith that you have. So if you've got 20% faith, you're going to get 20% of your eyesight back. If you've got 50% faith, then pick an eye, right or the left. You get one eye, you know? And dang it, if you would have had 100% faith, you would have had 20/20 vision. But instead, you're going to need glasses, even after I heal your eyes. According to your faith is better understood as in line with your faith. In line with your faith. In line with your thinking about yourself and your thinking about me and my ability, be it done to you. And Jesus, he always makes a huge deal about faith because faith is that virtue that makes a big deal about him. That's why he loves it. That's why he's always praising it, is because faith is that virtue that praises him. So he's into it. He loves it. Can't get enough of it. And I just want to say here, I'm not, you're here with your pastors, but I just want to be leery of anything around this faith conversation that places the emphasis on our approach and not the one being approached. Now, your approach is important. I'm not saying it's not important. But let's be leery of anything that puts the overwhelming emphasis on your approach and not on the one who's being approached. Like your faith and not the object of our faith. Your faith is significant, it's important, but it's not more important than the one who is the object of our faith. So Jesus heals them, and then he warns them, and he says, see to it that no one knows about it. But they went away, and they were like, yeah, probably not. And I don't know about you guys, but I read this, and I just think, I give these guys a hall pass, you know? Like, was Jesus serious? I mean, he's commanded some crazy stuff. This is the craziest command I've ever read. This is the craziest command in red letters. This is worse than sell everything you own and give it to the poor. I mean, if I was one of those guys, I'd be like, hey, you got any ideas for what I should say? You know? Like, wow. You got any thoughts for what I should say when I see my family for the first time? You know? When my uncle says, hey, I saw you at Easter and you couldn't play cornhole. Now you're here at 4th of July and you're playing cornhole with us. Got any ideas, Jesus? Hey, you look different. Have you lost weight? There's like a sparkle in your eye. No, you know what it is? Your eyeballs, they work. You have like working eyeballs. Man, that's crazy at Easter, like you couldn't see. What happened? I can't talk about it. What do you mean you can't talk about it? Well, he told me not to. He? Who's he? I bet it was Jesus. This guy who's moving from town to town, healing people. It's Jesus. Jesus. No, it's not. It's not him. It's not him. Well, it could have been him. I don't know. I didn't get a good look at him, you know? You didn't get a good look at him? He's the first thing you ever saw with your eyeballs. Talk now. This is whack. This is crazy. These guys, they knew it was crazy and they were like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So they didn't do that. So these two guys are going away because they're going to keep it to themselves. And behold, a demon-oppressed man who is mute was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the mute man spoke. Most likely this man is mute because he also can't hear. And the crowds marveled, saying, never was anything like this seen in Israel. But the Pharisees said, he casts out demons by the prince of demons. And here's just another great example why we want to steer clear of formulas around healing and just recognize that it's pretty nuanced in the scriptures, and even for Jesus, no two are the same. So this man is sick, help me out, because he has a demon. So he is brought to Jesus, okay? These two blind guys chase after Jesus. These two blind guys who just got healed don't have a demon, and they have faith and even have the theology to form, not just the theology, but the ability to form a sentence and say, Son of David, have mercy on us. This man is brought to Jesus, not in accordance with his faith. He can't form a sentence, and he's sick because he's oppressed by demons. So one size just doesn't fit all. Does Jesus respond to faith? Oh, absolutely. Nothing means more to Jesus than when we trust him. He totally responds to faith. Does Jesus only respond to faith? Does he only respond to faith? No. Does sin lead to sickness? Yeah. Is all sickness the result of sin in someone's life? No. Can the sick be sick because of demonic oppression? Yes. Is everyone who is sick also demonized, needing to be delivered? No. And so this is why God the Holy Spirit has given us the gift of discernment and given the body of Christ words of knowledge so that we can recognize and address what's at the root of the situation. And Jesus heals this man, and the mute man spoke on that day. And what did he say? Did Jesus just give him the ability to make sound? Or did Jesus give him the ability to form sentences? And please, we read these stories, and it's just like, oh yeah, and Jesus healed him. Oh yeah, and Jesus healed him. And these miracles just become somewhat normal. Please just picture this for a second. Someone completely frustrated for a lifetime, unable to express themselves, unable to connect. It wasn't that they were deaf and mute, it was they were isolated and alone as a result. And so this miracle now they're included, and they have this ability to connect with and express themselves, and they're healed in an instant, and they can be understood and they can understand. Man, what was that like? And some people go, oh, there's no one like Jesus. There's no one like Jesus. He's the guy. And then others say, because he casts out demons, he's in cahoots with demons. Basically, if he can tell them what to do, I think it's because he's in charge of demons. But as we read this, we're supposed to ask, or Matthew would invite us to ask, what's our response? What do we say? What is our reaction to this? Where do you find yourself? Indifferent, amazed, threatened, suspicious, full of awe and wonder, full of disbelief? Really? I don't know about that. But here we are. And it looks like they're going to gather these testimonies. But we are those. We're those who see. We are those who now hear from him. We are those who now say who Jesus is. We are now those who persist in faith. We're those who risk in faith and trust Jesus with our need. We've encountered the power of Jesus to transform our lives. This is who we are. This is what he's done, yeah? And we read on. And Jesus went throughout all the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, healing every disease and every affliction. Josephus, who was an historian after Jesus, tells us there's a little over 200 towns in this area. And the average size of one of these towns or villages was about 15,000 people. So not to get formulaic here, right after I told you to not get formulaic. But if Jesus was doing 2 towns a day, praying for the sick and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, then he's on a 4-month tour here. 2 a day for 4 months straight. And he would have hit every town and proclaimed the good news and healed the sick. And many of us are involved in serving in our churches. And can we just say, that is intense. That is quite a stretch. And what kept him going? What kept him going? Double days for 4 months straight, as every sort of situation and condition was brought to him. The crowds and the compassion that he had for them, because they were harassed and they were helpless and they were like sheep without a shepherd, and his guts went out to them. Harassed and helpless feels like such a thing a preacher would say. It's kind of rhymey. This could also be translated mangled people who are cast down. And Jesus' reaction when he looks out on a group of mangled people is not, you fools. His reaction when he looks out on a group of people who are cast down is not even sinners. Can't you get it together? He sees their suffering and he's moved with compassion. His mission is motivated by his compassion. Even the understanding around the word, and you guys have probably heard this before, but the King James translation of this word compassion says that he felt this in his bowels. He was moved in his guts. He felt sick inside about the situation, and he was going to do something about it. And then he says to his disciples, after this 4-month double-day tour, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. I want you to notice just a few things here, and then we'll close. I love it that Jesus says here, the harvest is so ripe, I want you to form a committee. He doesn't even say here, the harvest is so ripe, go plant churches. He doesn't say the harvest is so ripe, we need to gather more resources. The harvest is so ripe, go, 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 go. I'm all for all of those things. Committees, going, planting churches. But Jesus says the harvest is so ripe. Here's what I want you to do. Pray. Because the need is so huge and there's hardly any workers. And I don't want you to get confused and think this is up to you. So what I'd like you to do is pray. Start to pray. I bet it leads to a plant. I bet it leads to going. Could lead to a committee. Probably not. Sorry. That was like bitterness. I apologize for that. Came out of my heart. But hey. Pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. Here's the idea. The idea here is that these laborers would be thrust out. The idea is that there's workers already, that in every Christian church, there's a workforce, just needs a little fire under them. And the Lord of the harvest may call them and thrust them out. And notice that he says, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers for the harvest. I just want to remind you guys, because I know, again, a lot of us serve in our local churches, but I just want to remind you again, he's inviting us into the harvest. He doesn't even pray for people to go plow the ground with me. Pray for people to go plant and sow and water. Hey, join me, guys, for the last lap. The good part, the harvest. The harvest that you didn't plant, you didn't water, and now you get to join me in bringing in. Join me for the good part. Join me for the victory lap. Join me. The heavy lifting has happened. Is that the way that we relate to this? He's inviting us into the good part. So it's at this point that I usually just turn a corner into saying, hey, these guys had faith, so you should have more faith. And Jesus had compassion, so you should have more compassion. And how come your guts aren't going out? And how come you're not moved? But I sensed as I prepared for this evening that Jesus just wanted to move throughout this group, not necessarily of cities, but I felt like he wanted to make his way through this area, this region, the hundreds of hearts here, and he wanted to extend compassion to us. I don't know about you guys, but I've got some serious compassion fatigue cooking right now. My guts just aren't going out to anything or anyone. And I don't want to stand up here and say, so we need to have more faith and we need to have more compassion. That is true. That's true. I just think the best way to get it is to receive it from him. He has compassion for you. He knows what you're working through, what you're wrestling with, and he doesn't just have this for cities and people who are sick with serious conditions. He has compassion for you right where you're at. And have you ever been met by the compassion of Christ? I'm able and quickly able to receive Coach Christ, who challenges me, right? But man, I am undone when I receive compassion from him. And it absolutely motivates mission. Receiving and being met by the compassion that comes from Christ motivates mission. Would you stand with me? I just want to remind you right now, would you, just going to take a few minutes and respond to him, but I just want to remind you, I know the takeaway from this could be, oh, you of little faith, have more faith. But I just want to remind you tonight that faith is not believing as hard as you can for as long as you can. And that faith is not a feeling that we have. Faith is coming to Jesus with our need and trusting his ability to meet it. Humble confidence. Faith is a gift that we receive as we hear from God's word. Felt so encouraged by what Brian and Blessing sensed for this service. I think that our hearts just can't go out to another thing. Before the advent of media, a family was called upon to carry the worry from a local community. They were only expected to carry the suffering, famine, and disaster of their own community. And only occasionally would national news make it to their town. And it might have been months or even years late that they were hearing about what was happening around the world. But today we're exposed to worry from around the world. We see the suffering of the globe in real time. You're called upon to do something about it. Where are you? Do something about this. We become tired and our hearts can't go out anymore. There's no end to the evil. It doesn't seem that there's any end to the trouble. It just keeps coming and our hearts have to harden to survive. And so we find it easier to philosophize and point the finger, talk about the problem of evil and blame others for suffering than just engage in it and weep over it. It's just too much. Would you receive faith from Jesus right now? Would you receive the compassion that comes from Christ? His guts can go out to the whole world. He has compassion for you. Would you receive that from him? Not just coaching or challenge, not just him charging you. He's not sick of you. He has compassion for you. He's not tired of you. He has compassion for you. He has what we need. Jesus, give us something to give away. We come to you with our need, trusting you to meet it. Knowing that just the natural byproduct of that is mission in our lives. Come meet the guy who told me everything I ever did and still loves me. Come meet this guy. As you moved through towns and villages, come and move through touching hearts. Kids come to me with skinned knees all the time. I've gotten pretty good at trying to coach little girls who come to me with tears because they've fallen. And I've noticed that when they come to me, I'm usually really quick to say, oh, it's just a scratch. or look, nothing happened, or shake it off, or suck it up. And what happens when I do that with my daughters is they just keep persisting. They keep crying. And I find that as a dad, when I finally say, oh, I'm sorry you fell, and I bet that hurt, they go, huh, okay. And they head back to the playground. And I just sense that some of you are so sure that Jesus is coming to you that way. Suck it up. There's no blood. Other people have it way worse than you. And just for a second, would you entertain for a moment a Christ who would come to you and say, I'm sorry that happened. And I'm sorry they said those things. And I'm sorry they betrayed you in those ways. That must have hurt. It changes us. That type of love transforms us. Of course, he's still going to challenge you. But would you receive the compassion that comes from him